You might be tempted to roll your eyes when you hear what James warns against today. Don't do it. Wait till you hear why the judge is standing at the door. Hey, this is Steve with Looking Intently. I put out these short videos on the Bible each week. I'm going through James right now, and if there's any past videos you want to see, click this tag. And to make sure you're subscribed, click the subscribe button and then that bell icon in the lower right. And as always, if you like the video, let YouTube know. It's not even so much letting me know. Let them know and they'll push it out some to other people. So click the thumbs up, leave a comment, share it on Facebook or somewhere else. That helps a lot. In chapter 5, verse 9, James says, "Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door." Well, do not grumble. You might wonder, as we've been reading through chapter 5 here, how's that fit with what James has said prior? And that's always an important question for figuring out the meaning of a passage, a phrase. How does it fit? Because there's always going to be some way it does fit. And so you look here and you see the immediate context. James had been talking about being patient. And we saw in the last video, that doesn't just mean waiting without complaining. It goes deeper than that. Biblical patience is the idea of humble contentment. I'm content with a situation I can't change out of the humility that realizes God is God and I'm not. I'm not all powerful. I can't change it. I don't deserve for it to be different. God has allowed it. I have to humbly accept that. I have to be content with that. Well, think about it. When we're not patient, when we're not humbly content, when we think things should be different or we're working hard and it can't change, but we're still trying, that sort of puts us on edge, doesn't it? I know it does me, and so that makes me more prone to grumble. Something comes up, some situation, some person does something, and I might be able to let it go at other times, but if I'm on edge because I've not been patient, then I'll grumble. Well, that's how this fits together here. And notice he says the judge is standing at the door. Judgment, he says judgment could come from this. The judge is standing at the door. This is serious. We need to know exactly what James is talking about. So let's look at it. I think there's two things that really help us understand this. First of all, that phrase where he says, "Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged." It reminded me of a phrase in the Sermon on the Mount, and I've said a lot of times James borrows from the Sermon on the Mount, so you have to think maybe he had it in mind. Matthew chapter 7 verse 1 is the one that comes to my mind, where Jesus said, "Judge not, that you be not judged." So James says, "Do not grumble that you be not judged." Jesus said, "Judge not that you be not judged." Well, again, you think about context. James had talked about judging fairly recently. Back in chapter 4, verse 12, he said, "But who are you to judge your neighbor?" And we saw there, that doesn't mean we can't say something is wrong if God has said it is wrong. We can apply God's standards and say, that's wrong. But the kind of judging that James was warning against is where we aren't applying God's standards, we're adding to them. God didn't say this is wrong, but I think it's wrong, and so we judge someone in light of that. Or we don't judge fairly. God has his standards. I know I'm not perfect, and I'm glad for God's grace and mercy, but then I don't apply it to someone else. I expect them to live better than I do. Don't show them that same mercy or grace that God shows me. Well, I think maybe you put those together, it would make sense that that's the essence of this grumbling that James is talking about. I'm grumbling. I'm not saying, hey, that's wrong, with some biblical passage to back it up. I'm grumbling against what they're doing. Why? Well, because God hasn't said not to do it, but I don't like it. Or, again, I'm treating them unfairly. I'm not showing that grace, not showing that mercy that when they do something. Instead, I'm grumbling against them. And James says that's why this grumbling puts you in danger of being judged. And then we need to understand exactly what this grumbling is. That word doesn't mean outwardly complaining. It has the idea of like a bitter sigh. That sound familiar? Maybe you've heard it for something you've done. Maybe you've expressed that at someone else. It also can have the idea of rolling the eyes. I don't know if you saw that on video or not, but I tried to roll my eyes there. Well, again, we know what that means. They're shaking the head, just like that. And I think it really fits in with this idea of judging. It's not that they've done something clearly wrong and I just confront them. I speak the truth in love and I seek to bring them back. James is going to talk about that later. No, they haven't done that. It's just something I don't like, or I'm being unfair in the way I treat them. And so I don't outwardly say something, but I just give that sigh or roll my eyes or shake my head. That's what James is talking about there. And you think about it, what heading, if you want to call it that, does this fall under? It's all about this unity that we see throughout the Bible, certainly throughout the New Testament, is vitally important to the church, to Christians. If I'm grumbling against someone, well, there's not going to be unity between me and them in that church body. And so ask yourself as we apply this, do I realize what James means by do not grumble against one another? Exactly what it is. It's not just outwardly saying something. It's those expressions of disgust, of looking down on someone. Do I realize how serious it is? James warns of judgment for this. And then do I realize why? Because it undermines that unity that is vitally essential to our witness as the church. And then go a little deeper. Ask yourself, is there a situation where I grumble? Something that comes up regularly. And I express those, in whatever way, the eyes, the head, the sighing, I express some sort of disgust at someone. And maybe that's it. Is there a person I'm prone to do that to or against? Stop and think about it, and then just plain stop it. This is serious. And as we think about it, as we think about anything, be sure and read the good book like a good book.